Hey everybody, Scott Voak with Voak Homes at Pacific Sotheby's International Realty in San Diego. It's time to take a look at San Diego housing stats through May of 2025. And spoiler alert, we set an all-time record. But we're not only going to look at pricing from May, we're going to look at the underlying trends to try and figure out what's going to happen in June and throughout the rest of 2025. So let's take a look. All right, there's no reason to bury the lead. I told you we set an all-time record, and here it is. The highest median price for a detached home ever in San Diego County was in May of 2025 at $1.1 million. That beat out the previous high of $1,090,000 from a year ago. Now, there's two averages we look at. That was the median. Let's look at the mean. Okay, so now looking at the mean, we're at 1,442,000, which is 20,000 under our high of about a little over a year ago. That's about 1.6% off, and we're heading in the right direction. So we set a new record for the median price, and we might set one for the mean next month. Why does everything seem so slow and hesitant in real estate? Let's look at the next slide. Okay, now we're looking at the sold listings, and I stretched this graph out to 10 years to kind of show you where we are relative to history. And you can see that the last 3 years have been a lot slower, and that really is weighing on the industry. So when you're getting your input from people in the industry, this trend right here, where the volume just is not there post-COVID, is putting people out of business. It's cutting real estate incomes dramatically. And so if you're talking to people in real estate, they're not really excited, and that kind of is bleeding over to people think the market is bad. If you own a house or you're buying a house, that has nothing to do with how the market's doing from a realtor standpoint, because a realtor needs volume. Price fluctuations don't hurt realtors as much. So understand who you're talking to when they talk about a market being bad. And in this case, we're 8% below last year, and last year's was another historically low year. So the number of sales keeps slowing down, and that has been driven really by supply in the past. Okay, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Interest rates are too high for people to sell a home at 3% and buy a replacement home at 7%. Let's take a look at the pending inventory to see what next month's sales are going to look like. Okay, back to the 3-year chart here. You can see we're 4% below last year in pendings, although we did pick up a little bit from the month before. But once again, if you remember last month, I told you that I expected pendings to go up because April's pendings always go down due to tax season. Everybody does their taxes the first 2 weeks of April, so they're not buying houses. So your pendings go down, which is one of the reasons the number of sales went down a little bit. So it's pretty normal to see a pickup in May. We're still, however, 4% below last year. So that shows we've got slightly decreasing demand. Let's see what the supply is, because that supply-demand balance is going to tell us where pricings are going to go for the rest of the year. First, let's look at new listings put on the market in May, and then we'll look at the total number of listings to get a better picture. But as you can see, these are new people coming on the market for the first time, and that dipped a little bit in May, which is good. If you're a seller, you don't want to see the market flooded with inventory. If a buyer, you would like to see this number go up a little bit because that would create more softness in the market. Down about 3.6% over last year, so that's pretty similar to the number of pendings, down 4%. So kind of everything's moving in lockstep, but what's happening to the overall inventory? All right, this is a pretty telling chart. Inventory, total number of homes for sales detached in San Diego, up 26% compared to last year. And when we've got the number of sales staying steady or dropping slightly, that is going to push our months of inventory up and put downward pressure on prices. So if you remember, I did a video that talked about why this chart right in here, this part of the chart was an error. It was a statistical anomaly because agents were not canceling listings. They were putting them in withdrawn status. And so what should have happened here is you should have seen a more gradual drop like this. But that doesn't affect where we are now. And you can see for the last 2.5 years, it's been a steady upward trend line as we've gone from under a month of inventory to now where we're sitting at almost 3 months of inventory in detached housing. Now, I don't think you're going to see prices fall till we get to 4 months, maybe a little bit higher. Statistically, the rest of the country looks at a 6 month, but 4 months would be a lot of inventory for San Diego. So right now we're still under 3 months. We're still seeing prices increase, even though inventory is increasing. We're kind of in this weird situation where what's the market going to do next? Let's talk about that. All right, I'm really big into looking at the data and trying to figure out the way the market's going. I know a lot of people who've been following me are like, wait, this doesn't make sense. We just hit an all-time record for detached pricing in San Diego for the median price, and we're about to break the record for the mean, yet inventory has been climbing for 2.5 years. That's the supply and demand shifting. We should be seeing prices fall. What gives? Well, here's what's happening. Inventory was so low 2.5 years ago that we are just now working our way into an equilibrium. And we can tell it's an equilibrium because we actually have two different markets, and the middle market is kind of not there. Those two markets are, you've got a unique property. Now that could be, top story penthouse view downtown. It could be with a view of La Jolla Cove in La Jolla. It could be a beachfront in Del Mar. It could be a 2-acre horse property in Poway with a ranch house on it and great views. The point is, those properties are rare. Demand for them is not rare. So one of those properties hits, you've got 5 or 6 people who've been waiting 3 or 4 years for it to hit the market. They all come in, and somebody doesn't care about the price. It's where they're going to set up their family, where they're going to live the rest of their lives. And if they pay an extra $200,000, doesn't matter. It comes out in the wash 20 years from now. On the other side of things, let's say you live in an older section of town and it's a subdivision, or let's say it's one of these new master plan communities, East Lake, Santa Lucia Hills, Forest Ranch, Del Sur. You've got a really nice house. It's 3,000 square feet. It fit your family perfectly. But it's exactly the same structure as the house 3 doors down and 4 doors down from that. It's not a rare commodity. Still may have 4 or 5 people looking for that house in that neighborhood. You need the 5 bedrooms, you need 3,000 square feet. Problem is, there's 2 or 3 houses on the market, and everybody knows there's 3 or 4 more coming. So if your house is missing something or is just vanilla, and there's nothing wrong with vanilla. I've seen some very great houses that are not highly upgraded where the owners have kept impeccable care of it, and I know you can walk into that house and it's bulletproof for the next 10 years, but it's not wow. You don't walk in and go, nice, this is out of a magazine, or this has everything I need. My parents are going to love seeing what I bought. It's just a house, and it's been a great home, but there's 40 more of them exactly the same in different color schemes with different flooring and different countertops within a 3-block radius. In that case, you need to look for little things you've got. Do you have a pool? Do you have a view? Do you have solar that's paid for? Did you pay off your Mello-Roos? These sort of things will help, but it really is much more of a commodity. And when there's 5 people looking for a house and there's only one house, that price goes through the roof. There's 5 people looking and there's 3 to 4 options. The prices are going to hold, but when there become 5 to 6 options, the prices are going to fall. And that's kind of where we are right now. We're teetering on the edge with some of the plain, standard, your average house, your average San Diego home. Your excellent ones are the ones that are selling, and they're selling quick and they're selling at a high price, and those are pushing our prices up. What's going to happen for the rest of the year? Once again, it's interest rates. Remember, everybody in a house right now for the last 3 or 4 years got a rate 3.5% or under. They cannot buy another house after they sell theirs at a 5.5% interest rate. They need to get down to 5, maybe 4.5 before, hey, I can make at least an equivalent move, or the stuff I'm giving up's not important. Like, I don't have kids, so I can go to a 3-bedroom instead of a 5-bedroom, so I can shrink a little bit. But people are not really excited about going from 3,000 square feet to 1,400 square feet because the mortgage is so high. So rates are going to have to drop from the low 7s, high 6s into the high 4s before we see a surge in inventory. Problem is, as a buyer, you've been buying for the last 2.5 years, you used to 6.5 to 7.5% interest. We get under 6, buyers are going to come out of the woodwork because they haven't seen that type of pricing. Money will now buy something better than they thought. Buyers will come in about 1.5 to 2 percentage points before sellers will start selling. That's where we might see some phenomenal appreciation. On the other hand, if inventory keeps growing, interest rates hold steady, We're going to eventually get more and more inventory compared to sales, and we will start to see prices soften. Hasn't happened yet. We're kind of on the edge. So if you've got a really special house, you're going to do well. If you've got an average house, talk to your realtor. You probably, is there something you can do to fix it up, or are you just going to have to sell it, take your money, and go and try and, you can take advantage of the same situation somewhere else. But we're in a market that's kind of at a tipping point. Rare properties in San Diego are always going to do well because it's San Diego and there's not many of them. But the average properties are under a little bit of pressure. I expect that if rates stay high, we will probably start to see things soften price-wise, but right now prices are staying very strong because we're just starting to get to an inventory equilibrium. Thank you very much for watching the whole video. I really appreciate you sticking with it. Have any questions, hit me in the comments below. Feel free to give me a call. I do sell real estate. I do development. I do property management here in San Diego, so I'm very familiar with the market. Feel free to subscribe to get my monthly updates. We also do updates on a development project. For those of you who are thinking you might want to get in development, you can follow the train wreck of our project that we're going through right now. Otherwise, I'll see you next month. Till then, make it a great day.